So good day, friends. This is Dr. Bob Hamilton, and you have tuned in today to the Hamilton Review, where kids and culture collide. So thank you for all for being here today. It means a lot to me that you have tuned into the show. I do my very, very best to bring to you on a weekly basis great people. And today I actually have more than one person. I have two people who I'm going to introduce in a second. But thank you for tuning in. If you like what you hear, and I hope you do, share it with your friends and your family. We're trying to build an audience because the people who come on my show are usually pretty accomplished people. And today is certainly no exception. It's a great pleasure to welcome two ladies to my show. First is Jenn Hildreth and
Hello.
Jenn, say hello.
Hi, everybody. Sorry to interrupt. Just saying hi.
Not a problem. And her friend and co-author of a book we're going to talk about, Aimee Leone. Aimee, welcome to the Hamilton Review.
Thank you. Good to be here with you.
So who are these two ladies? Well, they have written a book, which we're going to talk about. It is called Tough as a Mother. And those of you who were tuning into the show a couple days before Mother's Day, they are our special honored guests for mothers. And they have written a book. Tough as a Mother is basically a compilation of a number of stories of women in sports, working mothers, and the shared traits that empower them all. But let me introduce them individually. Jenn Hildreth is a premier play-by-play voice in women's sports. She is an Emmy-winning sportscaster, both on television. She's been 2 decades. She's with ESPN, and she is the mother of 2 children, 2 beautiful girls who I am looking at in their picture in the cover of this book. So Jenn Hildreth, thanks for coming on the Hamilton Review.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
And Aimee Leone is a 6-time Emmy winner. Amazing. She's the Senior Vice President of Talent Relations for Fox Sports. She has been in sports for more than 25 years. Her favorite assignment, however, is being her mother to her 2 grown children, 1 young man and one young girl. So, Aimee, welcome to the Hamilton Review.
Thank you. Thank you.
So both of you have heard my show, and you know my shtick, which is I usually turn the microphone over to you guys, and I'm going to have each of you tell your story individually. Aimee, I think I'm going to start with you. And just tell a little bit about who you are, your background, what you've been doing. How did you end up in your life, basically your occupation for over 25 years, which is amazing. And a little bit how you and Jenn found each other and decided to write this book that we're going to talk about. So, Aimee, I'm going to turn my microphone off and turn yours on.
Okay, well, how far back do I go? There's a long road in the rearview mirror for me, but I'll just start with my dad was a cartoonist. My mom was a makeup artist. Way before Take Your Kid to Work Day was a thing, I went to the studio with my dad once, and I will never forget seeing a girl with a clipboard and a stopwatch as they were shooting some magnificent show that he was working on. And I remember at that moment thinking, everybody else at home turned on their TV and they're just watching the show. I got to see sort of how the sausage is made. So I remember so vividly that girl with the clipboard and the stopwatch, and I wanted to be her so badly. And fast forward to when I started working in television after graduating from college, I had a moment where I had a clipboard and a stopwatch and looked down and had this moment of, oh my gosh, I have made it. So clearly I didn't set the bar that high, but it was my first big milestone professionally. And it reinforced that I was on the right path. And then fast forward many years, I was in entertainment, worked for a fabulous gentleman by the name of Dick Ebersol, who co-created Saturday Night Live. He ran the shows that we were working on, and then he left to go work in sports. I stayed in the entertainment area on the shows that we worked on together, and then he went into sports, or went back to sports, my phone rang and basically it ended up that he offered me a job in sports, which to anybody who might be listening who knew me before this career of mine, they would laugh. I'm not an X's and O's kind of gal. Actually, I probably worked in sports about 5 years before I even learned what X's and O's were. And I always saw that as my weakness. Everybody else knew the stats. They knew who caught the Super Bowl winning pass in 1999. Me, I can tell you what I was wearing that day, but I don't remember and whose party I was at, but I don't remember anything about the game. Anyway, needless to say, I have a unique perspective on sports, and I realized that became my superpower because it gives me an objectivity that not everybody else has. So anyway, I've been blessed with an amazing career in sports. I actually do know a lot more about the X's and O's than I let people believe, but it's been amazing. And I've been out here in LA working with Fox Sports for the past 9 years.
Amazing. So when you were working with Ebersol before, I mean, you were doing TV shows, movies. What capacity were you working in, Aimee?
Well, first I had the stopwatch and the clipboard, so I held on to those for quite a while, actually, in production. But we did a couple of entertainment shows. We did a Saturday Night's Main Event, which was a co-production with then the WWF, now the WWE. We did Friday Night Videos, which I'm totally dating myself, but that was a music video show when a lot of homes didn't get MTV. But that was really fun, and that morphed into Saturday morning videos and some other projects there.
Very cool. Jenn, you're up. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, but I'm just excited because I'm learning more about Aimee on this show that I didn't even know before. I want to get into this video thing at some point later. But yeah, I did play sports all my life. They've always been a big part of who I am. I didn't grow up so much watching them, but I certainly played them. I played 3 sports in college at Emory in Atlanta, and I knew I've loved to read and write. And so I knew I wanted to do something that combined those two things. And I actually started off as a high school sports reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, writing. And then, as things so often do in this business, who you connect to that had a high school sports show. I started doing work there, connected with what was then a Fox Sports Regional, Fox Sports South. That led to some opportunities with bigger Fox and FIFA Women's World Cups. I've now done 3 of those, which are 3 of very highlight points in my career. And I switched over from a role that I began in, which was a reporter and a host, which for me, when I was coming up, and I've been in the business 20-ish years, I guess, that is where I saw women. That was the opening for women in sports. You could be a sideline reporter, you could be a host. Now we see women in so many more roles, and I had to get kind of nudged into the play-by-play role, which, if you're not familiar, that's the person in a broadcast who often does the who and the what. So they're calling the touchdowns, they're calling the plays, they're telling you what's happening, whereas the analyst will break it down and explain how it happened, why it happened. So I also was an analyst for a little while, which was a really pathetic existence as a soccer analyst, because now I've heard what real analysts sound like, but I did try my best. But I've been in soccer for a long time, and that's a point of pride for me on being able to cover women's sports and to help them grow. I find that is really what I'm passionate about. And along the way, wound up getting married and having 2 kids and having to navigate all of that while traveling a lot. Travel comes with the territory in what I do. And so I'm still a play-by-play announcer now, doing primarily women's soccer, National Women's Soccer League, college women's soccer, and collegiate women's basketball. And my girls are 2 teenagers, and one is about to graduate high school, which is a completely terrifying moment that's approaching.
Your kids grow up. I mean, I can tell you that as a father of a soon-to-be 50-year-old son, I marvel at that, and it's a good thing, but it's also kind of a little bit. What can I say? It kind of causes a little bit of you reflect, right, when your kids start.
Yes.
Graduation from high school is a big moment. I can tell you, it really is. So good. Well, congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
So you guys, okay, you're both mothers. Aimee's a mother. You're a mother. and your book is entitled Tough as a Mother. So first of all, before we get into the book, how did you guys meet, and why did you decide to write this book? Aimee, I'll give it to you.
Well, as legend goes, so Jenn and I have known each other for years. My kids, they're 32 and 28 now, so they're older. So I was going through a lot of this, the struggles of, we call it the juggle struggle, the work-life balance that comes with trying to have a demanding career and be successful at it while also being a successful parent and being present with your children as much as you can. And it was often something that you kept very private. You didn't want to be vulnerable. You didn't want to talk about it. You didn't want to burden anybody else with your struggles. But when Jenn and I would get together, we always talked about two things. I can say it now because her hair is curly today, but we always talked about the challenges of curly hair. And then we talked about the juggle struggle. So half a generation later, Jenn is going through the same thing. I'll let her take her whole story, but we were, again, keeping a lot of it very private. So we would always open up about things, and we connected so quickly on the shared challenges that working moms face. And as we get to know more and more women, and again, for me, as I said, I don't come from a sports background, but there are so many life lessons that we'll get into that you learn from sports. We take those qualities and we use them, we draw from them, we build on them to try to manage balancing family and demanding careers. So we met, she had a book idea, I had a book idea, and we ended up being each other's missing piece. And we landed on this together. And she's been the best partner I could have ever dreamed of to work on this with.
Oh, and I would give that right back. You know that, Aimee. And we did know each other a lot longer before we had the book idea. And it was just, I do feel like we each had these maybe separate ideas of, hey, I want to write a book about this experience. And it was actually, I give Aimee the credit because she came to me. She knew I was already kind of in the process of working on something. And she said, hey, what would you think about maybe combining our ideas? And that is a scary proposition, I think, for both sides, you know, because you have to, this is a project that is a passion project for both of us. It means so much. We want to do it right. And to bring someone else in you've never worked with, you know, that's kind of scary. But I can agree with Aimee and say it has been an amazing partnership and sisterhood. And we use that word a lot, sisterhood. It's something that we hope to extend to everybody who reads the book.
Yeah, no, I think you guys do a really good job, and you kind of go back and forth. Is very difficult to really do, because this is writing a book is a very intimate thing. I wrote a book, and I can tell you that I worked and worked and worked, and I did have a kind of a person who kind of co-wrote the book with me, like a ghost, but I did the majority of the work for sure. But writing it is a very personal thing, and you guys know that, and to combine the two, I think it's the old-fashioned 1-2 punch. I think you guys did a great job with this book, you really
Thank
did.
you.
Um, you both have kind of touched on this, but the idea of motherhood and career are always, they seem to butt heads. And I will tell you that in my office, I'm a pediatrician, and I spend my whole life, majority of the time, I actually talk to mothers, because mothers are the ones who bring the children in more than the dads. Although I have plenty of dads who are very, very involved, and they come in as well. That being said, we talk about these issues, life issues, all the time. The people that you're talking about are very elite athletes. They're people who've accomplished big things. You're talking about the elite of, and they've worked. You know, they've worked to become the elite. It isn't like they just woke up one morning and they were an elite soccer player. They've been doing this since they were kids, and to kind of walk away from that career, if you will, is tough. So everyone's conflicted. Every working mother's conflicted. May be a little bit more conflicted because of their notoriety, their success. Um, Maybe Jenn, you can kind of address a little bit about this conflict, because one of the comments that was made in your book, and I'll read it to you, is the journey of a working mother is hard. And it's simply stated, but it's really true. So Jenn, can you comment on this?
Yeah, I think that conflict you're talking about is one of the central driving forces of our book, and it's right there in the title. We took tough and mother and we put them together because oftentimes when you think about a mother, the initial things you think about are more terms like tenderness, caregiver. But we wanted to flip that on its head because we recognize that there is this other side of strength, of toughness. And yeah, there's a little bit of an edge to say, you're a tough mother. Maybe you have another word at the end there. If you're feeling a little dicey that day, we're not going to say that here, but you know what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
so we wanted to embrace, I wouldn't do that to you, Dr. Bob, but you want to embrace that conflict because we think that especially working moms truly do embody both. You've got strength, you've got struggles, you've got toughness, you've got tenderness. And our whole goal was to show all of it. Yes, we have some people who are elite in what they do, 12-time Olympians, Hall of Famers, WWE champions, and they all struggle. They get really vulnerable and they show people they struggle. So there's such a strength individually in sharing your struggle. And I think there's also a bit of a strength in hearing others who you maybe look at and think they've got it all together. And you realize really quickly they do not. And they're struggling just like you are. There's a real strength in that we wanted to tap into and share.
Agreed. So Aimee, how would you answer that dilemma of working moms?
Yeah, well, I go back to this nightmare that I had when I was growing up, and came in the form of a commercial. It was a commercial for a perfume way back in the day, where the lyrics, and I talk about it a little bit in the book. So it was the women's liberation movement. Women were having careers, they were talking about them, and they were raising families. And the perfume commercial lyrics went something like this: I can bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan, and never, ever, ever let you forget you're a man. So it was roles stacked on roles. And it was so confusing because you were going to work, but you didn't necessarily, there wasn't a narrative of letting go of any of the mom duties, right? So growing up with that, it was my own internal conflict. Like, yes, I wanted a career, never thought about not having one. And thankfully, my parents back in the day were super supportive of that. And thank God my husband is too. But I also wanted a family. So I didn't know where that all fit in because I felt like the women that I knew back then were taking one path or the other. There weren't many that actually took both. So that was a lot of my conflict going into it. But I also felt like I had something to prove. I owed it to the women who marched in the women's marches that I was dragged to when I was a child. I owed it to them to be successful in all of it and to build off of that foundation that they had the guts to lay down for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, listen, you're women, and one of the beautiful things that you can give to this world is a child. I mean, and I'm the father of 6 children. I can tell you that the joys of my life, and as an adult now, we have 13 grandchildren. So there you go.
Wow.
But I mean, our family has been the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, yes, I've had a wonderful career. I love what I do. It's actually a blessing to me on a day-by-day basis, what I do. But the joy in my life really comes from my family and my kids and my grandkids at this point in time. But we all have different lives. We all have different little journeys that we take in this world. I applaud you both for this idea that you wanted to have kids. I do think that by the way, in this world that we live in, we need kids. I think you all are very, very mindful of the fact that we're not having quite enough in this country right now, in the world.
And that said, just to interrupt, like, we also wanted to be very mindful of not judging, right? Like, that was our choice. There are some people who choose to have kids and not focus on career, and that's beautiful. And there are people who, for whatever reason, maybe by choice or maybe by circumstance, don't have children, and that's beautiful as well. we're staying in the space, like, thankfully, we were both able to do both. So that's sort of we want to be very mindful of people who made different choices. We're just supporting women who have made similar choices to ours. I mean, we're supporting all women, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
We're focusing on this book on women who have made choices similar to ours and providing support for them.
And I think you need to do that because there is this conflict, and
Yep.
what you're doing is you're showing working mothers that it can happen. And I one of your people that you highlight made a beautiful comment. She said, my husband and I found a rhythm, not a balance. And I happened, that kind of resonated with me when I read that. I thought, you know what, it is a rhythm. You have to get into the groove. And as Jenn, you're an athlete. You know what I'm talking about. You get into that flow, that rhythm of whatever you're doing. And it isn't that you are always, making a goal every time you get on the field, but there is a rhythm to what you're doing, and there's a flow. And I like that. And I think that parenting in general, yes, you're balancing. We do this. And by the way, we men do it too. I want you to know that.
Of
We have
course.
a challenge. There are people who get to overwork or whatever. We have that life balance as well. But the rhythm, spoke to me. Any thoughts about that, Jenn?
Yes, and when you were telling us you were going to bring up some quotes, I was like, okay, good. This is like a little game if I can remember exactly who said that. And I know who that was. That's my friend Debbie Antonelli, who's a Hall of Fame broadcaster, basketball player. She's covered women's basketball for many years, and she actually has a son with special needs. And she talks about some of her specific challenges that she has dealt with, and also the joys. He is just such a wonderful kid too. But everything she's talked about going through that and that balance. Look, I think we all talk about it. Anytime, Aimee, you and I get together, it's part of almost all the conversations we had. That word at some point comes up, balance. And the truth is, we are very rarely ever fully in balance, because to be fully balanced means you're giving enough time for your job, for your family, and guess what? Also for you. And that third piece, as the mom, is often the one that just gets pushed to the very bottom. And having to find a little bit of that is so, so important. A lot of our moms talk about that, retaining a little piece of yourself, your identity, who you are, giving yourself that time, that is important and you need to do it. I mean, we get into all conversations like that. And I think an expectation of there always being perfect balance is unreal. But what I always say is, and I try to tell my family this, is, it varies. There are times when it's going to be real heavy work. And I'm still there and I love you and I'm supporting you, but I'm not there day to day as much as I would like to be. And then on the other hand, there are going to be times that I can really pour into you more and be there and put work on the back burner. But every day is not in perfect balance by any means.
Yeah, no kidding. And one of the other things that you talk about is the myth of having it all. Aimee, do you want to speak about, have you had it all, Aimee?
I mean, I would say for me personally, I have had things in my life, gifts in my life that far exceed my expectations. So, do I have it all? I would say for me personally, I have it all and then some. So, I'm grateful for all of that. But I think that one of the things that we found with a lot of our women that we talked to when we said that, saying have it all, some of them paused and said, "What is all?"
Yeah.
Right? And what's all for me may be different than what's all for Jenn and for you and your family. So I think it's just that defining what all is at that moment, because that also changes as life evolves. So defining what all is and then what your path is to get there. Sometimes all at that moment just isn't attainable, and that's okay at that moment. And that could just be moved into a bucket of future goals. But it's a challenge. It is a lot of our moms talk about that, because the reality is the more parts of your life you have, if you say yes to one, you're essentially saying no to the others. And we found so many of our moms, they take that decision so seriously, like, okay, what is the impact of me saying yes? And Jenn and I, as she alluded to, we're going through it now. we're traveling, doing some media, and there are some things we'd love to do. We have a party coming up, and Jenn and I had a 3-day on and off text and conversations trying to figure out if we could make that work because we had things on the calendar. We didn't want to miss that. Can we slide it by this time so I could catch that flight? It's a constant balance.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you, and I think about even going on vacation. Sort of trying to figure out when you can actually schedule that and make it happen.
Right.
I do want to talk a little bit about your book specifically because it is a well-written book, and friends, this is a brand new publication. This came out actually not even a month ago. It's called Tough as a Mother, again by Jenn Hildreth and Aimee Leone. And it is, there's the picture for those looking at us through our YouTube video, but you have 9 chapters, I guess, or nine sections, and you broke it up like a 9-month gestation and pregnancy, which I thought was kind of sweet.
Not a coincidence.
And it is called Tough Mother Tenets. And I'm going to read them off because they're excellent. And I'd like to kind of talk about some of these individually. Number 1 is adaptability. Number 2, moxie. We'll define that in a minute. 3, sacrifice. 4, resilience. 5 is passion. 6 is vulnerability. 7, focus. 8, humility. And number 9 is support. These are all great words, by the way, and I think that that was a clever decision to divide these into these different chapters. But let's talk about them a little bit individually. We won't talk about all 9 because we don't have the time to do that. But maybe Jenn, tell us a little bit about moxie.
Ooh, I was hoping you'd go there.
Yeah, well, I think that's your favorite word.
That is how I start the intro. Yes. And if I could, I have to give you guys a visual for 1 second because in every decision of this book, Aimee and I really put so much time and thought into. Nothing was just sort of off the cuff. And those coming up with 9 words, figuring out what those words would be, what order they'd be. It was kind of a process that it happened organically somewhat. We pulled things from the people we were talking to, and we thought, oh gosh, this is a theme that keeps coming up that we got to keep hitting. And moxie was one of those. But what I was going to tell you is this moment, Aimee, I still so picture it, where you're here in my office where I am right now, and we had all the words written on cards, and we were, putting them out and like trying to organize who was going to go where. Aimee had all these index cards stacked all over the place. So seeing it all come together was such a wonderful moment. But yeah, moxie. Okay. So moxie, like strength of character, perseverance. It's a real strong personality. And the women in the chapter on moxie are some of the ones that I think their stories are going to resonate and stick with people. Their words are going to stick in your head. I truthfully was not that familiar with the story of Pamela McGee before Aimee and I talked with her, and she's an amazing story in terms of her athletic accomplishments. She and her son JaVale plays in the NBA with the first mother-son duo to win Olympic gold medals, which
Amazing.
is incredible. Basketball, right? So to hear her talk about motherhood, there are so many quote-worthy moments in there, but she talks about, Wonder Woman is dead. I'm not trying to be her, with like getting rid of this myth of perfection. And so I think I saw that Debbie Antonelli in the way that she tackled fighting for her son, Frankie, especially when it came to making sure he had everything he needed with special needs. And Alicia Montano, she's a name that I keep seeing everywhere out there. She is constantly pushing for women and mothers' rights. She has a company, it was named And Mother. She might have renamed it, but it's all about supporting moms in every way, shape, and form. And she is a woman who made a statement by running 8 months pregnant. You may remember that several years ago.
I'm looking at the picture in your book, and I had to look twice. I go, this is one. I initially thought she was just fat,
No, she was very much making a statement. She didn't.
I go, is she pregnant? I go, what is she doing out there?
Yes. Well, she wants you to ask that question. She wanted people to ask that question because she wanted them to ask that of her sponsors, who at the time, there were no protections for when a woman went on maternity leave for someone in her role as an athlete. There was no guarantee their contract would be offered back when they came back. There was no guarantee they'd be paid while they were pregnant and couldn't run. So she made that as a statement. It was a really powerful one, and she has helped to really push for change in that area.
Yeah, well, she caught my eye. Believe me, when I saw that picture, I thought, wow, this is one tough chick. She
That's
really.
right. Tough mother.
So Moxie, that's your word. Okay, so I'm going to just, Aimee, I'd like you to comment on resilience. Can you speak to
Ah,
that? Is that
I felt like Jen, like you said, I felt like this was a quiz. I was like, oh no, what's he going to throw at me? Will I know this?
ladies? You
Oh,
wrote the
right.
book. I just read the book. You're the one who wrote it. So you're on, Aimee. What about resilience?
Yes. So, I mean, resilience, look, these moms move forward, right? And sometimes there are some people just naturally who focus forward all the time. There are some when you have a child and you realize it's not just about you, you have no choice but to kind of get through. And we talked about Alana Jane Nichols, who's a Paralympian, and she is an incredible mother of a beautiful son. And some of the pictures we have in there are just so poignant. And she, to me, just embodies what resilience is. She had a tragic accident, was left paralyzed, partially paralyzed, and decided after, obviously, I can't even imagine what went into that process emotionally and physically in healing. But she said, "This is who I am. I am an athlete," and she is a two sport. Is that right, Jen? Paralympic
Three.
three sport.
She added the
So
third.
she is pretty incredible and a very committed mom. And we had one of the most beautiful conversations with her, where that's another thing worth mentioning. Through all of these conversations that we really let you into, because the stories are in the mom's own words, we were changed through it.
Yeah.
And the moms shared so much. They were vulnerable, they were honest, their stories were so powerful that Jen and I, as we weave our story through there, we just thought we'd say, like, and when I was 7, and then when I had my first kid, we felt this responsibility to honor the moms we spoke with, and we had to become what they were. We had to be vulnerable. We had to be honest. We had to tell our true stories. And it was a real journey. And I would say for me, Alana Jane was one of the people who impacted me so deeply and really encouraged me through her telling her story to be honest with my own.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed, kind of a thread that goes through your entire book, is that everybody has a story about difficulties. I mean, we had the one young that you alluded to, this young boy Frankie,
Mhm.
who had some special needs. Um, but a lot of your stories are there's some bad stuff in here about what happened to these people, different things, and how they had to overcome very bad situations. So I guess that we, in this world, as we like, as I say, no none of us get out of this life alive, right? we all get battered by life, and as the longer you go, you really do get battered. But it's amazing how so many of your people in this book really overcame. Um, so very good, Aimee. Jenna, can you comment a little bit about passion?
Ooh, passion. I don't know. That was Amy's. See, we actually divided them up. I'm sure that I could, but I might pass this one back to her because we each wrote an intro to each of the different tenant chapters, and she wrote that one. Aimee, you want to take this one?
Aimee, take it. Yeah,
Sure. So all of these qualities that you laid out, the 9 tenets of tough motherhood, um, they're qualities that elite athletes possess, that working moms bring to the table every single day. And Jen and I, through both our careers in sports and our journeys as working moms, we, in our own way, tied some of that together and found it so empowering and encouraging. So I worked on a lot of Olympics, and seeing the passion of the athlete was
yeah,
something that always so deeply impacted me. yet at the same time made me feel so painfully insecure because I never felt that I was that passionate about anything. So as we did this book and as I did that tenant intro, and as we said, this was all such a growth experience for us. I started by saying I didn't really know what my passion was. I didn't feel like I had it because I was comparing it to the passion that these athletes have for their sport, and their competition and their training and their sacrifice and all of that. And through this journey, I realized that what I was most passionate about was being a working mom. And so through this, I actually discovered that, yes, I do have a passion and it's really strong and it drives decisions I make. It drives choices I turn down, because it's all about finding that balance, that I so desperately seek, even now as my kids are adults, because they still need their mom.
And if I could jump in real quick, I love this is one of the things that I think when our partnership, we do come at it in some different ways. Some of the things we have that are similar, but I love that Aimee got really open and vulnerable herself because she was a little nervous writing that chapter because it was one of the things she felt insecure about personally. Did she have that passion that she saw in all these other athletes? And that is what I love about this book because we don't want people to think we're showing you all these amazing athletes. Like, look what they're doing. And only by comparison to make you feel like all the things you're struggling with, you feel way down here and they're way up there. It's not that at all. We're very much bringing it all together and welcoming and throwing away any of that comparison nonsense. We don't have time for that. And I truly believe that you come into this process as a working mom and yeah, you're going to struggle and you may not have all the things that it looks like everybody else has, but it's okay. And I
Yeah.
think being open and honest about that is just something that we were really able to bring forth from ourselves and from everybody in the book.
Well, your focus changes. When you're a mother, I mean, you're not going to go out and party with everybody after the game. You're going to go, you know what? I got to catch a flight back home. Your priorities definitely and rightfully change. I mean, if you were out, hanging out with the girls or the guys or wherever after the games or whatever what you're doing, that would almost seem wrong, right? And so, I mean, certainly by the way, this is a point of growth. And that was the way it was with me too. When I was doing my training, I couldn't go out and kind of hang out with my residents and other people because I had kids at home. I had to go home to.
Well, I'm just going to jump in and say, I'm not going to lie. There were times I stayed up a little too late after the game because maybe my flight was in the morning and partied with the team after the game. So, you can fit some of that stuff in there sometimes.
You just have a few extra bags under the eyes the next day, but you still get it done. That's what it's about.
Jenn, tell us about humility.
I laugh because this is one of my most personally. I did. I
can read it. You want me to read it to everybody? No, go ahead.
Definitely not. No, they can read it. But this is probably the one where I get the most open about a lot of different things, but certainly some things surrounding breastfeeding. And while Aimee pointed out earlier that we very much wanted to make this a book for all moms and whatever they choose to do or are able to do in terms of feeding their child, we are supportive of. But when we were looking at stories of humility, well, a lot of those came out for our moms who breastfed, especially those who traveled. And so I shared some personal stories about that. And I think you strip those layers away and have the ability to laugh at yourself. Oh, my friends, that is so going to help you get through some of the tough times. Like I do tell the story of where the genesis for writing a book was born. And it was in the middle of a bathroom in Hartsfield-Jackson, Atlanta International Airport, in the middle of the bathroom, not in a stall, sitting on my suitcase with my pump plugged in and just sitting there in the middle pumping milk because they didn't have a place for me to do it otherwise. And I needed an outlet. And there I was. And just thinking, oh my God, I need to tell somebody about this or I'm just going to die of embarrassment. There's something about when you can share and laugh about it later that makes it feel better. So I think that's where